Welcome to the Ranking Things Podcast, a production of Jason Davis VoiceOver. Please visit jasondavisvoice.com. My name's Jason Davis.
And I'm Eric Wright.
The subject that we're going to discuss today is our favorite female SNL cast members.
The ladies of SNL.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The ladies of SNL.
After Dark.
Yeah. The show's been on almost 50 years.
Crazy. It started in 75. I was only 10 years old. But by the time I was about 12, I was definitely starting to watch it. Because I'd be upstairs. If I wasn't asleep and I heard my dad laughing, I'd go downstairs. And if he wasn't watching Monty Python, then usually it was Saturday Night Live. I can say I've watched it a lot in the late 70s through the 80s. Missed some of the later 90s and early 2s with, young boys.
Okay.
And, but then caught up. And, and we bought, the all the different
kind of
best ofs and stuff. So I feel like I have a nice breadth of most of those 50 years.
Okay. Depending on how old you are and when you grew up watching, that might affect your list.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I mean, it definitely affected mine to some degree, but I try to, I feel like I have a decent sampling of in my top five. And then, of course, once we get through the top five, we will talk about everybody else too.
Well, it's just, and I always say this, a top five in so many of the topics we come up with is just
impossible.
It is impossible because we definitely, I don't want to be slighting any of the women here because we are talking about some of the most brilliant talent.
Oh, no question.
To come out of television that goes on to movies and all that. And I had a good conversation with my brother-in-law, Tony, about it.
He's like your guru.
He's he's a barometer for a lot of things.
Okay. He does a podcast too, right?
Yes. It is called Bill and Tony's Excellent Adventures in Music.
Cool.
And they've been talking about like the top 500 albums of Rolling Stones.
Oh, wow. Nice.
So it's been, it's a good podcast. So I recommend it.
Cool. All right. So why don't we jump in?
All right.
Who do you have for number 5 top female SNL cast members?
Where to start? It was so tough. Looking at it now, I'm changing my mind, but I'm going to Cicely Strong.
That's a great choice.
I friggin' love her. And, she was on at a time, she was on, I think 10 years. She just left.
Yeah, I think she was 10 or 11 years.
Yeah. So she's definitely one of the long timers. She was one of the few that was, what do they call them when they're only on like a feature player, and then they become. Yeah, some of them become. She did that like in a year, which didn't happen a whole lot. So that was. I think that's just impressive.
Absolutely,
her characters. First of all, she could do all kinds of great, awesome characters. I love the girl at the party that you wish you never started talking to, because it's just this, this girl who's obnoxious and thinks she knows everything and is socially conscious, but she can't pronounce the words or say things right.
Yeah, she says stuff, very nonsensically.
Like, she's like, Seth, take off the blinders and listen. What?
Learn a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, she's a great singer and she throws everything. I hope she goes to Broadway. I want to see her. I would love to see her live on Broadway.
She actually was doing some sort of a show in Los Angeles for the early part of this current season of SNL.
Yeah.
And that's why she wasn't around. And then I think maybe like she realized, okay, it's time for me to leave. And that's why she kind of left mid-season.
Well, she wasn't expecting to be a comedian. Like she was more of like a show. Yeah.
I know she has a show on Apple TV called Schmigadoon with
really?
Keegan-Michael Key, which I think is a musical of some sort. I've never seen it, but I've heard good things.
Okay.
So I think there's another season of that coming, and she might end up doing something, in theater as well.
And, when you look at just the characters she comes up with, and they're very varied. She throws herself in. Not saying that all these, women don't throw themselves into their characters,
right?
But I don't know. There's just like an extra step that she seems to take somehow.
Yeah,
and she's not afraid to do whatever. I mean, she did this one where she's doing. She's on the news. She was being Judge Jeanine Pirro.
Oh my God!
Holy crap! She's like
that's
She's great with that.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite impressions / characters that she had on the show.
And Steph is like, you don't need to yell. Mama only has one volume.
That's right.
And it's 3 glasses of Chardonnay at a loud party. And she ends up like crawling into a big box of wine as she's singing I Did It My Way. And she sinks all the way, totally douses herself.
It's so over the top.
Wine.
It's awesome.
It's great. She's so great. She actually had 8 nominations for Primetime Emmy Awards.
I believe it.
And won twice.
I believe it.
She was someone that came to my list later.
That's a great choice. She's on my list too, but a little bit later on.
Okay.
So I'll talk a little bit more about Cecily Strong.
5?
So number 5 for me, she was in the cast from 1995 to 2001, Molly Shannon.
Oh, yeah, she's great.
One of my favorite things about pretty much all the women on SNL is that they have no vanity. They put it all out there, even if they look silly, goofy, ugly, whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. If it's going to make people laugh, they'll do it. Molly Shannon, I think, was one of the best at that. And the other thing about Molly is that physical comedy.
Yeah,
like she would throw herself around and through furniture like Chris Farley, you know?
Right, yeah, she was Farley-esque in that way.
Yeah.
That was one of her characters was
Mary Catherine Gallagher.
Catherine Gallagher sniffing her on. Yeah, because there were times like, she's like throwing herself on furniture and you're seeing her underwear and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's not glamorous.
Not at all. Yeah, exactly. Nothing dainty about most of the women, but especially a lot of the characters that Molly Shannon played. Yeah. She had a lot of great characters.
Oh, yeah.
I made like a note of some of the more familiar ones. Sally O'Malley. I like to kick and stretch and kick. I'm 50. 50 years old. 50 years old. I love that. That's one of my favorites of hers. Mary Catherine Gallagher, as you mentioned. Right. She did a stand-up comic, Jeannie Darcy. Don't get me started. Yeah. Don't even get me started.
I like her NPR stuff.
Yes. That was one of the most classic SNL sketches, especially for like holiday time, is the Sweaty Ball sketch.
Sweaty Balls.
Which she's featured prominently in.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever see the one with Betty White?
Yes.
With her dusty muffins?
Yes.
Who's not good? And you love Betty White.
Of course. What's not to love? And that's really what's great. You know, a lot of people might say, well, gee, Molly Shannon, most of her characters were sort of loud and wacky and really, over the top. Mm-hmm. And that's somewhat true. But you take the character Terry Rialto of the NPR thing, the Delicious Dish.
Delicious Dish.
Very laid back, very quiet, very almost monotone. Good times.
Good times.
Good times. Good times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dusty Muffin. All right.
She went on to do a lot of great stuff after the show, too. I just love her. Molly Shannon, number 5 for me.
Yeah. I definitely agree.
Who do you have for number 4?
So my number 4 is Kristen Wiig.
Nice.
Okay. Now, again, nominated for 4 Primetime Emmy Awards from 2009 to 2012.
Wow.
Okay. She's incredible impersonator. Mm-hmm. She can also sing.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the great characters. One of my all-time favorite characters of anything, any SNL, is the lovely Lemon Sisters.
Oh my God!
With the four women singing. I remember Amy Poehler oftentimes was in it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're each singing this beautiful, about my husband, bring me a ring, and all this.
Yeah.
And then when you get down to her, they're all in the bouffants. They're very 50s dresses, very proper.
They're something out of the Lawrence Welk show.
Exactly, Lawrence Welk thing.
Look it up, kids.
And she comes out and she's singing like, I caught a dog on the side of the road and took him home and ate him. Is that wrong? And people like all grossed out. And also,
she has these little doll hands.
She's got these tiny doll hands and she starts like puffing at the bubbles and she's just running around the set getting, in the way.
And the giant forehead.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She has the big forehead, the crooked teeth.
The weird teeth, yeah.
It's like, just like you said, they'll do it.
Yeah.
So, and she was.
It's a shocker the first time you see it, for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. She was really good at doing like a nervous, shaky person. Mm-hmm. I really like Kristen Wiig. I think she deserves to be in a top 5.
I think that's an excellent choice. I almost had Kristen Wiig in my top 5. I think I might have chosen Molly Shannon instead.
Okay.
Because I ran out of slots, but because there were certain people I had to have.
Yeah.
all the people that didn't make my top 5 could be in, like, you asked me on another day, they probably would be in the top 5. And none of this matters. So,
yeah, it's not like any of their, going to pay us for this.
Yeah, no, and none of them care what we think.
Kristen didn't get back to me. So.
Do you think any of these ladies give a shit what we think?
No.
Exactly. Do you think anybody listening to this really gives a shit?
I hope not. Because, some fans can get nutty.
Yeah, well.
And be like, it should have been.
Yeah, we don't take it that seriously. Neither should you. So, number 4 for me.
Yeah.
Kate McKinnon.
Good.
She was on the show for 10 years, 2012 to 2022. Mm-hmm. My favorite character of hers by far is Colleen Rafferty, who gets abducted by aliens. Now, case in point, she obviously is the star of that sketch.
Oh, yeah.
Because the stuff that comes out of her mouth and the way she pulls it off without like breaking character.
My pink pocket, my stink rocket. It's like, oh my gosh. And when she would do it like with the other 2 people.
He comes up to me and he starts batting my knocker. Yeah, and she's doing it to Cecily Strong. Obviously, Kate McKinnon's awesome. But the fact that the other people in the sketch don't break. I mean, A.D. Bryant would break a little bit. And the very first time they did that was, I think, the one with Ryan Gosling. At one point, I think he started to enjoy the sketch too much and he sort of forgot his cue. And then Cecily Strong kind of prompted him, kind of helped it.
Right, yeah.
Which, again,
consummate pro.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I think people forget about when you're watching that show. You almost never saw Cecily Strong break character. Right. No matter how crazy. I mean, every once in a while, depending on how late the sketch was on the show. Because I think all the people that were on the show, the later the sketch was on, the more likely they would break character because I think you're punchy by that time after the full week of work and everything else. But Kate McKinnon, Justin Bieber, Long Island Medium, Hillary Clinton, Kellyanne Conway, Whiskers Are We. And one of my favorite things also, the Do It in a Twin Bed Christmas sketch. It was a song where the song's about you're home for the holidays and you bring they bring their boyfriends home and they have sex in their childhood room on their bed and so it's really funny. Cecily Strong's in that one too, actually. Oh, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was another one of her recurring characters. Just awesome. Super talent. And she actually came on, she started right around the time Kristen Wiig was making her exit.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, boy, losing Kristen Wiig is going to really hurt. And Kate McKinnon, I felt kind of fell right into that spot.
Oh, yeah.
It's very similar.
Well, she's actually my number 3.
Okay, cool.
She was winner of the American Comedy Award in 2014. And also, she has several Primetime Emmy Awards.
Yeah, I believe it.
Some of the other characters, she played Elizabeth Warren speaking on the Equality in America. She said, "Sir, where is your bus stop? Because I wonder where you get off." So Kate McKinnon, man, she's another one that does it all. And and they had her singing.
Yeah, she sang too.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome.
So that's my 3.
3 for me was Cecily Strong.
Okay.
You mentioned girl you wish you hadn't started a conversation with, Kathy Ann.
Yes.
So she was another character that she did on Weekend Update, where she's always getting ready to light the cigarette.
Yeah.
And just when she's about to light it, she has another point to make.
She's the gruff old lady.
Michael Che, yeah.
Yeah.
Just the way she talked and very, very funny with the old members only sort of jacket.
Yeah,
just perfect. What else?
She's at Princess Jasmine. There was a sketch.
That's right.
And she was doing that and she's singing with what's his name from Star Wars.
Adam Driver?
Yeah, Adam Driver.
Yeah.
I always want to say Minnie Driver, and that's obviously way wrong.
Yes.
They're singing on the magic carpet, and as she's singing, stuff's happening to her. Like the first thing, a giant seagull flies into her. And then a bomb gets dropped on her, and then they empty an airplane toilet on her, and she's just doused in water. Meanwhile, Driver's just there singing his part, and everything's great, and she's just getting all messed up. Hilarious.
Good stuff. She's somebody that her leaving the show feels like it's going to be tough to fill that spot. I'm sure somebody's going to come in and, step up and do a great job. But, there's certain people that are on that show that kind of define how brilliant the show is and why it's an important show and how many wonderfully talented people have come from it.
Hope to see a lot more of her.
Yeah, for sure. All right, who's number 2 on your list?
My number 2 is Tina Fey.
Okay.
Head writer, first female head writer in 2000. Obviously doing Sarah Palin verbatim. She was her twin. She was awesome with that. And then just always involved with a bunch of goofy sketches, like the mom jeans, doing a lot of those kind of things. When she was doing the news update with Jimmy Fallon, she hosted 5 times. And it got me thinking that she's more than just a writer performer on SNL. She also, I think, brought more back in. And I think about, like you brought up before, with the sweaty balls and Alec Baldwin. And Alec Baldwin credits Tina Fey for bringing his career back.
Yeah.
I put her that high just because she's like Miss SNL.
I think she's definitely one of the most important women that's been on the show.
Yeah.
Number 2 for me, Gilda Radner.
Really?
Yes.
I'm so pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Now, Gilda's not somebody I grew up watching because obviously I was very young when she was on. Original cast member and obviously groundbreaking. It's super important. The only reason she's number 2 for me is because I didn't grow up with her.
Right. Okay.
Now, having said that, I have the best of Gilda Radner. We watched it. I was like in awe.
Yeah.
She was a force of nature.
Right. And it's definitely nothing against the other 2 of the 3 original women.
Right.
Because they're all fantastic.
Of course.
Jane Curtin is, my God, one of my favorites.
Look, there's a reason they were on the show.
Right.
I mean, you don't get cast in a show like that unless you can bring a lot of stuff.
Right. Well, and Gilda was actually the first person that they casted for the show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That I didn't know. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. I mean, Lisa Loopner. Emily Litella, always misunderstood stuff, like whether it was about violins on television,
right,
or whatever.
Eagle rights? Eagles have rights.
Exactly. Baba Wawa. Now, she was the first person to do Barbara Walters on the show. I mean, Sherry O'Terry did an amazing Barbara Walters on the show too. The Judy Miller Show, where she's has the little girl with an overactive imagination in her bedroom.
That was
Candy Slice, who always shows up late. She's this crazy rock star, like she's almost like a female Mick Jagger or whatever.
She was phenomenal. I remember one time watching SNL.
Yeah,
and she's doing that character. And as she's singing, she puts her arms up. She has this huge armpit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think she was also sort of based on Patti Smith a little.
Yeah.
And so just like so over the top with her performance, I had her at number 1.
No kidding.
I changed her to number 2 because I wanted you to go, what? Number 2?
But no, I'm actually surprised that she's
even
on
in
your list.
Well, she has to be.
And that's the thing. The fact that these 3 women totally held their own, if not excelling, around the likes of Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi.
Lisa Loopner is the character that plays with Bill Murray.
Yeah.
And they're great together.
Yeah. I haven't brought up one of her big characters that I loved.
Roseanne.
Because Gilda, no surprise to you, is my number 1.
Okay.
Because, like I said, I'm sure part of it's just the memories with my father and being up late for the first time and watching this cutting edge show. But I just remember Roseanne and just how ridiculous, like the hair and the big lips and just the fact that she would start talking
Roseanne. That's the way she talked.
And she'd have she'd start talking about I think it was King Tut exhibit.
Yeah.
And here's like one of the most important archaeological finds in history.
Right.
And with the span of like 3-4 minutes, she's talking about like Diana Shore has a drippy sweat ball on the end of her nose or something. And she, she's just going on. It's like, hey, so I looked over at her and I said, Dinah, wipe that sweat ball off the end of your nose. What are you trying to do? Make me sick? And she just leaves this face for the camera and the crowd is like just losing it. I rarely heard my father laugh, especially that hard.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those big laughs were coming from what she was doing.
Oh, I'm sure. And like I said, she was my number 1. And honestly, the reason I made her number 2 is because I had a feeling she was going to be your number one, and I wanted to have a different number one too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fair.
And plus, I wanted you to go, well, who's your number one?
Well, yeah, I have an idea who it might be.
Okay.
But a couple other things that I just want to talk about Gilda a little bit is that she lost her dad when she was only 14.
Wow.
She went to like an all girls school, and then she enrolled at the University of Michigan, but dropped out and followed her boyfriend to Canada.
Wow.
Where she made her stage debut in Godspell.
Okay.
Then she dated Martin Short a little bit later.
Oh, wow.
Martin Short, he's got the history with Second City TV. And then, of course, he was on SNL for a while. In 75, like I said before, she was the first one picked to be on the show. Then when I heard about her cancer, I was very sad.
Of course.
She was awesome. So after she passed away, she got a Grammy Award for Best Spoken Word or Non-Spoken Musical Recording in 1990, and also a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
If you want to talk about somebody who just deserves accolades after accolades, it's her. No question.
Yeah.
Because she really was a groundbreaker. I mean, the show was different than anything that had been on, really. I mean, there were other variety shows and sketch comedy shows, but I mean, they called them the not ready for primetime players for a reason.
Right.
It was, I mean, now if you look back at the original season, it's probably very tame compared to what they do on the show now.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe what they get away with on the show now. It's awesome. But, these people came out and they really blew the roof off the place,
Well, I always saying the fact that she and the other two originals were able to keep pace with the men.
Exactly.
It was great.
Yeah. They weren't just side pieces. They were obviously stars in their own right, which they deserve to be.
I'm dying. Who is your number one?
Number one for me is Tina Fey.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I could see that.
I've always been a huge fan of Tina Fey, when she on the show, and then the stuff that she's done after SNL too. And honestly, I think it's all kind of related in a lot of ways. I mean, look, 30 Rock is almost like a love letter to SNL.
Yeah.
I think she deserves to be number one just for what she did on the show. I mean, again, first female head writer, that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure she was on from 2000 to 2006.
Yeah.
So any sketch that you watched while she was head writer has a little bit of her DNA in there too, probably, because I'm sure she either punched up scripts or, had to approve stuff. So the head writer is probably involved in almost anything that happens on the show. So let's talk about the women of SNL who didn't make the top 5, but could have. These women, they're all interchangeable in my book.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about Tina Fey, a lot of times that also brings up Amy Poehler.
Right.
Who I had back and forth as my number 5. Maybe because I was just thinking she's done a lot of stuff outside of SNL. She was promoted from feature player to full cast member in her first season, which we already said is kind of rare. She co-anchored the Weekend Update. I remember whatever happened and they start doing this rapping thing. She's standing up on the desk and, and she's saying, yo, your mother humpers. She would do anything too.
Yeah. I'm going to just start going down my list of just missed.
Right.
Kristen Wiig, we've talked about already.
We talked about her. I'm surprised she didn't make your top 5.
She almost did.
I can understand.
It was like the number 5 slot. All right. Yeah. I have watched Cecily and Kate McKinnon over the last decade.
Right.
And would literally say while watching, if you're naming the top 5 women who've ever been on the show, you got to talk about these two.
Yeah.
So, and then Gilda, of course, Tina Fey. Yeah. So, like, that literally left one slot. And it could have been Kristen Wiig. It could have been Sherry O'Terry. It ended up being Molly Shannon, but it was, I had all of them in there.
Yeah. Sherry O'Terry, wasn't she she was the real small girl that did the cheerleading thing?
With Will Ferrell. But she had a ton of actually, she very easily could have been in the top 5. She did Judge Judy. She did Barbara Walters. She had all kinds of funny characters.
Yeah.
And again, talk about somebody that was not glamorous when they were on. Right. Just, But Maya Rudolph's another one.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. I love the fact that, she sings. And when I was researching a little bit, I found out that she's the daughter of singer Minnie Riperton, whoever the heck that is.
La 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 la.
Really?
La 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 la. Do 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 do.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. So that helps explain how she's got the pipes.
Yeah, Rachel Dratch Debbie Downer.
Debbie Downer. Oh
my God. Yeah,
Keep going. Who else you got?
Adie Bryant.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, just, another one that was a 10-year veteran on the show. Anna Gasteyer.
Yeah.
Who's gone on to other great things too. Yeah. But I mean, on the show, she did the sketch with Will Ferrell where they were the music teachers. The
music teachers.
And they would sing like, real.
Yeah. And she did. Yeah. She
another one, another great
Martha
singer.
Stewart.
Yeah. Martha Stewart.
She could do Celine Dion. Oh, the NPR.
She was the exactly.
NPR.
Yep.
Wow.
Vanessa Bayer. Leslie Jones had a 5-year run on the show. She was mostly on the Weekend Update. Very funny.
Yeah.
Jan Hooks.
I love Jan Hooks.
Yeah. Of course, Jane Curtin and Lorraine Newman from the original cast.
Yeah. Heidi
Gardner is a current cast member who's wonderful.
I really like Chloe Fineman.
Yeah, Chloe Fineman was next on my list.
Okay.
I think those two are going to be the ones that sort of step into the slots left open by Kate McKinnon and Cecily Strong.
Yeah.
That's not to say that they haven't already been amazing on the show.
Yeah.
But now that they're going to have more opportunities, probably they're going to be the ones that we're going to be going, holy shit.
Yeah.
Ego Wodum is in the cast now. She's wonderful. Julia Sweeney, Pat was her big character.
What's that?
It's Pat. Yeah. And Melissa Villaseñor was a recent cast member too. She was great with impressions and stuff. Yeah. Very funny. I feel like I named almost every woman that's been on the show.
See, now it's funny because there's one that I think is conspicuously missing.
Nora Dunn?
I liked her.
Yeah.
But no. But I think she's less SNL. Was only on for 3 years.
Okay.
So I don't think for me, there was a lot of SNL. But since then, she's like become huge. And this is where
I know who you're
my
talking
brother-in-law,
about.
Tony, was like, well, wait a minute, you're missing the real number one. And he brought up
Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Now, she was on the show, but did she really stand out as a cast member of the show? Before? I mean, obviously, her career since being on SNL has been amazing.
Right. So in my mind...
And I love her, by the way.
Of course. What's not to love?
I wasn't really watching when she was on the show, so I don't remember like what she contributed to the show.
I remember a few things. I remember her like being a talk show host and spitting water at everybody. So, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, she was on like during the early 80s.
Yeah.
And that was like a time of the show that I remember they weren't sure if the show was going to survive.
Yeah.
And then it just had a resurgence like mid 80s and later.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
I can't add to your list because I would just finish out everyone else who's ever been on.
I seriously think we've given props to almost every woman that's ever been on the show. We can say this, anybody who's ever walked through the doors of that show is talented. Phenomenally.
No doubt.
Because that is probably one of the toughest gigs in comedy, maybe even in entertainment. Have you ever read about what goes on at that show? People always say, oh, SNL's not funny anymore. I was watching, it was like no funny sketches, or it was only one funny sketch. Let me tell you something. First of all, bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
Because they've gotten smarter on that show because there's a lot more pre-recorded stuff than there used to be back in the day.
Right.
And the pre-recorded stuff tends to be more fleshed out and usually a little bit funnier.
Yeah.
Even if they're not laugh out loud funny all the time and maybe they don't have a great ending, but you got to remember that's why they call them sketches.
Right.
They're literally changing shit right up until we see it.
Oh, yeah.
Live. Now, keep in mind, the guest host comes in early in the week, meets with the writers and the cast.
Right.
They do a read through. They pitch sketch ideas and all that.
Right.
Then they start rehearsing. They do everything in a week.
Yeah.
They get like no sleep, and they're writing stuff right up until showtime.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that they get a show on, I hope the show never dies. I hope it goes on forever and ever because I think it's it's an important voice and I still find it funny.
Right.
Some sketches are funnier than others, but look, no question about it. Even in a bad sketch, there's still talent going on there.
Oh, yes. And I wanted to keep going because that's where I learned some of my social what's happening in the real world of people, I guess, under my age. Because they'll be imitating somebody, and Kathy's like, "Who's that?" I was like, "I don't know. We have to goggle them and find out who they are."
I love Saturday Night Live. I love the women that have been on that show. They've all been amazing, and I think this has been a fun podcast.
It has been good.
Well, thanks for joining us. Please visit jasondavisvoice.com if you need a voice for a commercial, internet and corporate video, e-learning, phone message, and more. You can email us rankingpodcast@yahoo.com or tweet @JasonDavisVoice. Thanks for listening to the Ranking Things podcast.
As my grandma, Nana Rosanna Dana, used to say, it's always something.